Hello grade 10 students. Today I am here to teach you chapter 12 in your textbook that's called least common multiple of algebraic expressions. So before we start algebraic expressions, we'll take several numbers and identify how to get the least common multiple. So let's take the three numbers 8, 12, 24. So here, what are multiples of 8? Basically, it's the times table. So here, when you take 8, multiples of 8, 8 times 1, 8, 8 times 2, 16, 8 times 3, 24, 8 times 4, 32, 8 times 5, 40, 8 times 6, 48, 8 times 7, 56, 8 times 8, 64, 8 times 9, 72. So here you can write any number of multiples here. So I'll stop here and try to find out the multiples of 12. So when you take multiples of 12, so basically times table of 12. 12 times 1, 12. 12 times 2, 24. 12 times 3, 36. 12 times 4, 48. 12 times 6, 12 times 5, 60. 12 times 6, 72. And what about multiples of 24? So 24 times 1, 24. 24 times 2, 48. So what is 24 times 3? 3 times 4, 12, 1 remaining, 3 times 2, 6. So that's 72. So I'll stop here. And if I want the common multiples, what are the common multiples of these three numbers? See, what are the common multiples? I can see 24 is common. So I can write common multiples. 24 is one common multiple. What about the other one? I can see 48 is the other common multiple. And when you look carefully, we can see again 72 is another common multiple. So you can find any number of common multiples when you have given several numbers. But here we need the least common multiple. That's the lowest value out of these common multiple. So what's the least number we are getting? We are getting 24. So we can write the least common multiple out of these common multiples, we can write that's 24. Now we'll look at another example. Now take 9, 12 and 18. So we want to find out the least common multiple of these three numbers. I'll teach you an easy method. So we'll take out of these three numbers, what's the largest number? Largest number is 18. So first we'll take, this is the lowest common multiple. So here I'll assume 18 is the least common multiple. So that means this number should be divisible by all these three numbers. So we'll check that one. So 18 divided by 9. Yes, it's divisible. What about 18 divided by 12? It's not divisible. So that means you can't take 18 as the least common multiple. So the Next step is we are taking multiples of 18. So what's the next multiple? 18 times 2, 36. Now we are checking whether 36 is divisible by all these three numbers. So we'll try to find out 36 divided by 9. Yes, it's divisible. 36 divided by 12. Yes, you are getting 3. That's also divisible. 36 divided by 18. This is 18 times 2. That's also divisible. That means 36 is the least common multiple. So this method is very easy. Just take the largest number as the least common multiple, and then if it's not working, you find out the multiples of that. So here we can write 36 is the least common multiple of 9, 12 and 18. Now we'll look at another example, 20, 40, 50. So what's my method? We take the largest number as the least common multiple. So I'll take 50. So that means I am assuming 50 as the least common multiple. So that means this should be divisible by all these three numbers. 50 divided by 20? No, it's not divisible. So we can't take 50 as the least common multiple. So what's the next multiple of 50? We can check with 50 times 2, 100. Now check again, 100 divided by 20. Yes, you can divide and write down 5. What about 100 divided by 40? It's not divisible. So that means you have to ignore this value as well. You can't take 100 as the lowest or least common multiple. So then we are taking the next multiple, 50 times 3, 150. So now we'll check whether it's working. 150 divided by 20, it's not divisible. So that means you have to ignore this number as well. Then what's the next one? 50 times 4, 200. Now we'll check with 200. 200 divided by 20. Yes, it's divisible and you get 10. 200 divided by 40. Yes, it's divisible by 4 and you get 5. What about 200 divided by 50? Yes, it's divisible and you get 4. So that means 200 is the least common multiple. So we can write least common multiple of 20, 40, 50 is 200. Now we'll see another method to find out the least common multiple. So we call this is using prime factor. So what we do, we find out separate prime factors and see what's the least common multiple. So we'll take 20. So what are the factors, prime factors? Take 20, divide by prime numbers, divide by 2, you get 10, divide by 2 again, you get 5. So what are the prime factors? You get 2 times 2 times 5. I can write this is as 2 to the power 2 and 5. Now we'll take the next number, 40. What are the prime factors for 40? Divide by 2, you get 20. Divide by 2 again, you get 10. Divide by 2, you get 5. You divide by 5, you get 1. So what are the prime factors for 40? 2 times 2 times 2 times 5, or you can write 2 to the power 3 and a 5. Now we'll take the next number, 50. What are the prime factors for 50? Divide by 2, you get 25. Divide by 5, you get 5 here. And when you divide by 5, you get 1. So what are the prime factors for 50? You get 2 times 5 times 5. So you can write here 2 with 5 squared. Now when you are looking at the least common multiple, look at these numbers and find out the highest power. Now when you take power of 2, what's the highest power there? 2 to the power 3 is the highest value out of the base 2. Now when you take that one, the highest one you have to take, that's 2 to the power 3. What about the highest power of 5? This is 1, 1 and 2. So you have to take the highest power of 5, that's 5 squared. So this becomes the least common multiple. So what's the value? 2 to the power 3 means 2 times 2 times 2. You get 8. 5 squared, 5 times 5, 25. So 25 times 8, 25 times 4, 100. So 100 and another 100, you get 200. So the least common multiple of 20, 40, 50 is 200. So from the previous question, we used another method and we got the same answer. Now we'll take this one and we'll use prime factor method to find out the least common multiple. Okay, so we'll take 16 and find out the factors. Prime factors, divide by 2, you get 8, divide by 2 again, 4, divide by 2 again, and you get 1. So here 16 you can write 2 to the power 4. What about 24? Divide and see what are the prime factors. Divide by 2, you get 12. Divide by 2 again, you get 6. Divide by 2, you get 3. So the prime factors are, how many 2's are there? 2 to the power 3 and 3. What about 40? Take 40 and divide. Divide by 2, you get 20. 10, divide by 2, 5. And divide by 5, you get 1. So here, what are the prime factors for 40? You can write how many 2's? 2 to the power 3 and 1, 5. When you look at the highest power, out of power 2, you get the highest power as 2 to the power 4. And you get 1, 3, 3 to the power 1. And another 5 to the power 1. So what's the least common multiple? So least common multiple is 2 to the power 4 into 3 times 5. So we'll find out 2 to the power 4. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, you get 16 times 3 times 5. So here, what is 16 times 3? 48. 48 times 5? 24. 240 is the lowest or least common multiple of 16, 24 and 40. Now we'll use another method to find out the least common multiple. So that's called division method. So in division method, you can take all 3 numbers straight away and divide by prime numbers till you get 1. So here first we'll divide by 2. When you divide by 2, you get 8 here. 24 divided by 2, you get 12. 40 divided by 2, you get 20. Again, I can divide by 2. When you divide by 2, you get 4. 12 divided by 2, 6. 20 divided by 2, 10. Again, divide by 2. 2 here, 3 and 5. Now we have to get rid of these numbers. So here 2 is there, so that means you have to divide by 2. But you can't divide 3 by 2, so you write as it is. 5 also you can't divide, you write as it is. Now we can divide by 3. When you divide by 3, what happens? You get 1, but 5 you can't divide, you keep as it is. So again 5 is there, so you need to divide by 5, you get 1, 1, 1. So till you get 1, you have to divide. And then what's the least common multiple? You have to multiply all these factors. So therefore, least common multiple. So what's the least common multiple? 2, 2, 2, 2. That means 2 to the power 4, that's 16 times 3 times 5. So here 16 times 3, 48. 48 times 5, 240. So the least common multiple for these three numbers is 240 using division method. Now we'll take this example. So we'll use division method to find out the least common multiple. Take 8, 12, 16. We can divide by 2. When you divide by 2, you get 4, 6 and 8. When you divide by 2 again, you get 2, 3 and 4. Again, you can divide by 2. Here 1, but 3 you can't divide, you write as it is. And 4 divided by 2, you get 2. Again, you can divide by 2, 1, 3 write as it is, and here you get 1. To get rid of this 3, you can divide this by 3 again. So what you get? You get 1. So what's the least common multiple? That's equal to 2 to the power. How many 2's are there? 4. 2 to the power 4 times 3. So 2 to the power 4 is 16. So 16 times 3. 3 times 8. 3 times 6, 18. 1 remaining and you get 48. So 48 is the least common multiple of 8, 12 and 16. Now we'll take the review exercise in your textbook. So in this review exercise, first question, find the least common multiple of each of the following triples by writing each number as a product of its prime factor. So here you have to use the second method that we used, using prime factor. So how we find out prime factors? You write down 12 in terms of prime numbers. So 12 we can do divide by 2, divide by 2 again and divide by 3. So you can write 2 to the power 2 times 3. 18 divide by 2 you get 9. 3 times 3, 9 divide by 3 again you get 1. So 18 how can we write as prime factors? 2 into 3 to the power 2. There are 2 3's. What about 24? When you take 24, you can divide by 2, divide by 2 again 2 and divide by 3. So how many 2's are there? You can write 2 to the power 3 and 1 3. Now to get the least common multiple, you take the highest power. So when you look at power of 2, the highest power is 2 to the power 3. What's the highest power of 3? You get 3 square. So what's the answer for the least common multiple of these three numbers. 2 to the power 3 is 8. 3 squared is 9. 8 times 9, you get 72. Now we'll take the second one, 6, 10 and 15. So here we need to find out prime factors for these three numbers. So what is 6? Divide by 2 and divide by 3 again. So 2 times 3. What about 10? 10 you can write 2 times 5. What about 15? Divide by 3 and divide by 5 again. 3 times 5. So you can write 3 times 5. So what's the lowest common multiple or least common multiple? So when you take power of 2, you get 1, 2. When you take 3's, again 1, 3. When you take 5, that's 1, 5. So what's the least common multiple? 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 5, 30. Now we'll look at the third part. So you're asked to find out the least common multiple of 20, 30 and 60. So 20, 30 and 60. So we'll write down 20. How can you write? Divide by 2, divide by 2 and divide by 5. So you can write 2 to the power 2 into 5. What about 30? 30 divided by 2 you get 15. Divide by 3 you get 5. Divide by 5 again you get 1. So how can I write factors of 30? 2 into 3 into 5. Now we'll take 60. So what are the factors of 60? Divide by 2, divide by 2 again, divide by 3 and divide by 5. So what are the factors? You get 2 to the power 2, 3 and 5. So find out the least common multiple. Take the highest power. When you take power of 2, highest power is 2 to the power 2. What's the highest power of 3? You get 3 to the power 1. Highest power of 5, 5 to the power 1. So what's the answer? So answer is 2 to the power 2 is 4. 4 times 3 times 5. 4 times 3, 12. 12 times 5, you get 60. So 60 is the least common multiple. Now we'll take these two. That's also you ask to find out the least common multiple using prime factors. So 8, 12 and 24. How can you write 8? 2 to the power 2 divide by 2 you get 4. Divide by 2 again 2. Divide by 2 again 1. So 8 you can write 2 to the power 3. 12 how can you write? Divide by 2 you get 6. Divide by 2 again you get 3. Divide by 3 you get 1. So here 2 to the power 2 into 3. What about 24? 24 you can divide by 2. Divide by 2 again by 2 and divide by 3. So you get 2 to the power 3 times 3. Now to get the least common multiple, you take the maximum power. So when you take power of 2, the maximum power is power 3. When you take 3, the maximum power is 1. So 2 to the power 3 is 8. 8 times 3, 24 is the least common multiple. What about this one? 24, 36 and 48. So we'll take those three numbers, 24, 36 and 48. So we'll write down the factors. 24, divide by 2, divide by 2 again, divide by 2. You get 2 to the power 3 and 3. 36. You can divide by 2, divide by 2, and divide by 3 here and 3. So here you get 2 to the power 2 and 3 to the power 2. So when you look at 48, what are the factors? Divide by 2, 2 again, 2 again, 2 again, and you finally divide by 3. So how many 2's are there? You get 4. 4 2's and 1 3. So how can we find out the least common multiple? Take the highest power. So when you look at power 2, 4. 4 is the highest power. So you take 2 to the power 4. When you look at 3's, what's the highest power? 3 squared is the highest power. So 2 to the power 4 is 16. 3 squared is 9. So 16 times 9 is the least common multiple. So 9 times 6, 54, 5 remaining, 9 times 1, 9, 9 plus 4, 14. So what's the least common multiple of 24, 36 and 48? That's 144. Now we'll look at question number 2. It says an ice cream producing company has 3 ice cream vans. The 3 vans arrived at the housing complex Isuruvimana once every 3 days. So this first van once every 3 days. So the second van once every 6 days and the third one once every 8 days respectively. If all 3 vans arrived at Isuruvimana on a certain day, after how many days will they all arrive at this housing scheme again on the same day? So basically they are asking what's the least common multiple of 3, 6 and 8. So how can we find out 3, 6, 8? We'll use the easy method. So if it's 3, 6, 8, we can assume the largest one is the least common multiple. So I'll take 8 as the, assume this is the least common multiple. So here, can you divide 8 by 3? You can't take. So we have to ignore 8. Take multiple of 8, you get 16. And see whether you can divide by all the other numbers. 16 divided by 3, not divisible. So again you have to ignore. 8 times 3, you get 24. Now see whether it's divisible. 24 divided by 3, yes, you get 8. 24 divided by 6, you get 4. 24 divided by 8, you get 3. So here 24 is divisible by all these 3 numbers. So what's the least common multiple? Least common multiple is 24. That means after 24 days, all these 3 vans coming on the same day. We'll look at third question. It says Mr. Gunathilaka visits Golf's grounds every Sunday evening to observe the setting of the sun. Mr. Mohammed and Mr. Perera too visit the same location once every 6 days and once every 8 days. So here there are 3 people. So Mr. Gunathilaka and Mr. Mohammed and Mr. Perera. Mr. Gun visits Golf's grounds every Sunday evening. So every Sunday means how many times? Once in 7 days. So here that means every 7th day. What about Mr. Mohammed? Once every 6 days. What about Mr. Perera? Once every 8 days. if the three of them met each other for the first time in Golface grounds on Sunday, the 8th December. So here, Sunday, 8th December 2013. After how many days did they all meet each other again at the same location? On which date did they meet again? So we'll need to find out the least common multiple of 7, 6 and 8. So I'll use the prime factor method, 7, 6 and 8. So here 7 is a prime number, so I can write 7. 6, what are the prime factors for 6? You can divide by 2, you can divide by 3. So 2 and 3. So 8, what are the prime factors? 8, 2 divide by this, 4, and you can divide by 2 again. So here you can write 2 to the power 3. So using prime factors, what's the least common multiple? So you take the maximum power. When you take power of 2, maximum power is 3. When you take 7, maximum power is 1. When you take 3, maximum power is 1. So what's the answer? 2 to the power 3 is 8. 8 times 7 times 3. So 8 times 7, 56. 56 times 3. 168. So that means after 168 days, both three are coming to the same location. So 168 means how many days? Now here this is December. December 8th. So normally December is 31 days. So here we'll take up to starting from 8. So here we'll subtract 8 from that. So we'll take up to 31 how many days? 31 minus 8. So how many days? 23. So we'll subtract till December 31st. We need 23 days. So subtract 23 days from that. 5. So 145. Then January how many days? Again 31. So we'll subtract 31 from that up to January 31st. So you get 114 days. That's up to January 31st. February. Now, this is 2013. That means 2014. Is it a leap year? 2014. If it's divisible by 4, that means a leap year. So, is it divisible by 4? This is not divisible by 4. So, that means it's not a leap year. So, how many days in February? So, February you get 28 days. So, here subtract 28 from that. $86 days remaining. So, this is up to February 28. Then March again 31 days are there. So, you can subtract 31. So, you get 55. April 30 days. 55 minus 30, you get 25. This is April. May, here you get 31 days. So, here from April 30th. So, here 25 days means May 25th. So, what's the day they are going to meet again? 25th of May. (2014), all are meeting again at the same place. We'll take the fourth one. In fourth question, when a number is divided by each of the numbers 5, 6 and 7, a remainder of 1 is obtained. Find the smallest such number. So that means you are asked to find out the least common multiple of 5, 6 and 7. So here use prime factor method. You can write down 5 as 5 times 1, that's a prime number. 6, how can you write? 2 times 3. 7, how can you write? It's a prime number, that's 7. So if you want the least common multiple, so least common multiple, you have to take, what's the highest power? Power of 2, that's 1. Power of 3 is there, that's 1. Power of 5, 1. And power of 7, 1. So what's the value? 2 times 3, 6. 6 times 5, 30. 30 times 7. So what is 30 times 7? So what's the number? 2 times 3, 6. 6 times 5, 30. 30 times 7 is 210. But the question asks, a remainder of 1 is obtained. Now, if you take 210, it's divisible by all 5, 6, 7 and the remainder is 0. So, if you want one remainder, what should be the number? You have to add 1 to that. So, 211 is the number. When you divide by 5, 6, 7, you get remainder 1. Now we'll look at how to find out the least common multiple of algebraic terms. So what are algebraic terms? You get letters with numbers. So these three are algebraic expressions. So here how we can find out the least common multiple. So here what we can do, we can rewrite all these numbers as prime numbers. So here 4a squared, 6ab, 8b. So how can I write 4? We know 2 times 2. So I can rewrite this as 2 times 2 a squared. What about 6ab? 6 I can write 2 times 3. So I can write this one as 2 times 3 a times b. What about the other one? 8b. How can I write 8? 2 times 2 times 2 times b. Now again, like before, we take the highest power. So here I'll write as power form. 2 into 2 becomes 2 to the power 2. And you take this one, 2 times 3 times a times b. What about this one? I can write 2 to the power 3 times b. Now, if you want the least common multiple, I told you to take the highest power. When you take power of 2, the highest power is 2 to the power 3. When you take 3, you get power of 1. What about the other one? If you take power of a, it's a squared there. What about power of b? It's 1. So what's the least common multiple of this algebraic expression? So you can multiply and write down this is the least common multiple . So 2 to the power 3, 2 times 2 times 2, you get 8. 8 times 3, 24, a squared and b. So this is the least common multiple of an algebraic expression. Now we'll take this example 4a squared, 6ab and 8b. Okay, so here this example we'll use our method, the short method that we use. So here first think about the numbers 4, 6 and 8. So how we find out the least common multiple of 4, 6, 8? So we can take the largest number as the least common multiple. So assume 8 as the least common multiple and see whether you can divide by other numbers. 8 you can divide by 4. But you can't divide 8 by 6. So we have to ignore 8. Multiples of 8. 8 times 2, 16. Can you divide this by 4? Yes, but we can't divide this by 6. So here again you have to ignore. 8 times 3, then the next number is 24. Can you divide 24 by 4? Yes, you can. What about 24 divided by 6? Yes, you can, and it's divisible by 8 as well. So the least common multiple of these three numbers is 24. Then what you do? So we know 24 comes there. When you look at the powers, we take the highest power. So when you take power of a, here a squared a. So you are getting a squared there. So when you take b, power is 1. So here what's the least common multiple of these three algebraic expressions? That's 24a squared b. Now we'll take this also using our short method, 12, 18 and 9. So what's the least common multiple of 12, 18 and 9? So we'll take highest number as the least common multiple. Can you divide 18 by 12? No. So you have to ignore that. Then take the multiple of 18. 18 times 2, you get 36. Can you divide 36 by 12? Yes, that's 3. Can you divide 36 by 18? Yes, that's 2. What about the other one? 36 divided by 9, you get 4. So that means 36 is the least common multiple of 12, 18 and 9. So 36. Now this is an algebraic expression. So what's the highest power? When you take power of x, you get highest power is power of 2. When you take y, what's the highest power of y? We see power 3 of y is the highest number. So what's the least common multiple of this expression? 36 x squared y cube. Now we'll take this expression. Again, what are the three numbers there? 20, 30 and 40. So we'll try to find out the least common multiple of 12, 20, 30 and 40. So what's our method? Take the largest number as the least common multiple and see whether you can divide by the other numbers. 40 divided by 20, you can divide, but you can't divide by 30. So you have to ignore that. So what's the multiple of 40? You get 80. Can you divide 80 by 30? Again, you can't. Ignore that. 40 times 3, 120. Now see whether you can divide 20. 120 divided by 20, you get 6. 120 divided by 3, you get 4. 120 divided by 40, you get 3. So that means 120 is the least common multiple of 20, 30 and 40. So here take this number and see what's the highest power of the other letters. When you take P, what's the highest power? Power of 4. So you get power of 4 there. What about Q? Q, you get power 4. So what's the least common multiple of this expression is 120, P to the power 4 and Q to the power 4. Now we'll take exercise 12.1 in your textbook, and they're asking to find out the least common multiple of the given terms. So we'll use which method? By looking at the highest power. So there are no numbers here. So what's the highest power of x here? You get 1. What's the highest power of y? You get power of 2. So what's the least common multiple? X, y to the power 2. What about this one? Look at power of a. The highest power of a is 2. What is the highest power of b? b squared. So the least common multiple of this expression is a squared, b squared. Now we'll look at this one. Now you get numbers. So it's easy to first find out the least common multiple of these three numbers and think about the highest power of those letters. So 638. So what's the, when you take 638, I told you what's the shortest method? Take the highest number as the least common multiple and see whether you can divide. 8 is not divisible by 3, so you can ignore. Multiply by 2, you get 16. 16 also not divisible by 3. Ignore that. 8 times 3, 24. Now see whether you can divide by the other numbers. 24 is divisible by 6, divisible by 3 as well as divisible by 8. So 24 is the least common multiple. So here number is 24 and look at the highest power of A and highest power of B. So what's the highest power of A? That's power of 1. What about highest power of B? Power of 1. So the answer for this one is 24AB. Now we look at this example. So 24, 8x and 10x squared. So first thing, look at the three numbers and find out the least common multiple. So here 24, 8 and 10. So shall we do the short method? So what's the largest number? 24. So 24, we can assume that that's the least common multiple, but it's not divisible by 10. So you have to ignore that. So then think about the next one. Is it, what's the multiple of 24? You get 48. It's not divisible by 10 again. Divide by, multiply by 3, you get 72. Again, 72 is not divisible by 10. You have to ignore. Multiply by 4. 4 times 4, 16. 1 remaining. 4 times 2, 8. 8 plus 1, 9. 96 also not divisible by this. So when you multiply by 5, what happens? 5 times 4, 20. 2 remaining. 5 times 2, 10 plus 2, 12. 120 is the multiple that you are getting. Is it divisible by 24? 24 times 5. And what about 8? Is it divisible by 8? 120 divided by 8, you get 15. Yes, it is divisible by 8. Now, is it divisible by 10? Yes. So, 120 is the least common multiple of these three numbers. So, 120 is there. So, then look at the power of x's. So, here what's the highest power of x? You get x squared. So, the answer is 120 x squared. Now, we'll look at this question. 4, 8, 12. And you get m, mn and m squared. So again, look at the numbers and find out the least common multiple. 4, 8, 12. So what's the largest number? 12. See whether this is divisible by 4. Yes, but it's not divisible by 8. So you have to ignore that. Now look at the next one. Multiple of 12, you get 24. 24 divided by 4, you get 6. 24 divided by 8, you get 3. 24 divided by 12, you get 2. So that means 24 is the least common multiple of 4, 8, 12. So here we'll take that number, and what's the common one for the letters? M, what's the highest power? You get m squared. What's the highest power for n? You get 1n. So the answer is 24m squared n. Now we'll look at this one. So 6p, 4pq and 12pq squared. Again 6, 4, 12. What's the least common multiple? We'll take 12 as the multiple and see whether it's divisible. 12 divided by 6, you get 2. 12 divided by 4, you get 3. 12 divided by 12, you get 1. So that means 12 is the least common multiple of 6, 4 and 12. So then you think about the highest power of the other letters. When you take P, what's the highest power? That's P. What about Q? What's the highest power of Q? You get square term. So what's the least common multiple of this algebraic expression? 12p q squared. Now we'll look at this example. Again, 4, 6, 8. We'll start from 8 and see whether it's divisible by all the other numbers. 8 is not divided by 6. So you have to ignore that. So take the multiple of 8, you get 16. 16 divided by 6, it's not divisible. So you have to ignore that. 8 multiplied by 3, you get 24. So 24 divided by 4, you get 6. 24 divided by 6, you get 4. 24 divided by 8, you get 3. So that means 24 is the least common multiple. And now look at the highest power of the other letters. X squared you are getting. And when you consider y to the power 1 is the highest power. So you get 24 x squared y. Now look at this one. There are no numbers. So you don't need to find out the least common multiple. Now straight away you can find out the highest power. Highest power of m, you get m squared. Highest power of n, you get n. So what's the least common multiple? M squared n. Now we'll look at this part. What are the numbers? 1, 4 and 8. So what's the highest? What's the least common multiple of these two numbers? We'll take 8. 8 is divisible by 4. 8 is divisible by 8. So 8 is the lowest or least common multiple of 4 and 8. Now think about power of A. What's the highest power of A? You get A squared. What's the highest power of B? You get B squared. So what's the least common multiple of this expression? 8a squared b squared. Now look at this one. What are the numbers you are getting? 5, 10 and 2. So we'll use our easy method. Take the highest number as the lowest common multiple. Check whether you can divide. 10 divided by 5, yes, you get 2. 10 divided by 10, you get 1. And 10 divided by 2, you get 5. So here, this is the least common multiple of 5, 10 and 2. So here, we'll write 10. Now you have to look at the highest power of x and y. So when you take x, what's the highest power of x? You get power 2. What's the highest power of y? You get y2. So this is the least common multiple of this expression. Now we'll see how we can find out the least common multiple of algebraic expressions which include binomial expressions. What are binomial expressions? Bi means two terms. So here, can you see this example? You get two terms. So what we have to do, here we try to factorize those expressions and find out the least common multiple. So here when you take this expression, 5x plus 10, how can we factorize? Factorize means making brackets. You take the common term out. 5 and 10, what is common? I can take 5 out and write down this as x plus 2 because 5 times 2 you get 10. What about 3x plus 6? What's common? I can take 3 out. So when I take 3 out, what's remaining? X plus 2. 3 times 2 becomes 6. What about this expression? Ax minus 2a. What's common here? I can see a is common. Take it out. The remaining part is x minus 2. So when you look at this expression, what's the least common multiple? 5, 3a is there once. So that means when we want to take the least common multiple, we take the highest power. So when you take 5 to the power 1. When you take 3 to the power 1, and we get a to the power 1. And when you take this expression, x plus 2 is there, power of 1. So x plus 2 is there, and also x minus 2 is there as the expression. So you can write x minus 2. So what's the least common multiple? I can write 5 times 3, 15a, x plus 2 and x minus 2. Now we'll take these 3 binomial expressions. So first thing, you need to factorize. So when you take a squared minus ab, how you factorize this? A is common, take it out. When you take a out, what's remaining? You get a minus b. Take the other expression, 2a plus 2b. What's common here? 2 is common, take it out. A plus b is common. A plus b is remaining. So here when you take 2 out, a plus b. So what about the other expression? 5a minus 5b. When you take 5 out, what's remaining? A minus b. Now look at these expressions and write down the highest power. So when you take 2 is 2 ones, 5 ones and a ones. And when you look at this one, a plus b is there and a minus b there. So when you are multiplying, what you get as the least common multiple? 2 times 5, 10. 10 times a, 10a. A plus b, a minus b. Now we'll look at the example 1 in your textbook, and they are asking to find out the common multiple of, least common multiple of 15x squared, 20x plus 1 and 10x plus 1 squared. So here first thing we need to find out the prime factors of 15, 20 and 10. So here we'll do separately. 15, what are the prime factors? That's 3 and 5. So I can write this as 3 times 5 times x squared. What about this one? 20, how can I write? Divide by 2, you get 10. Divide by 2 again, you get 5. Divide by 5, you get 1. So 2 to the power 2 times 5. What about this one? 10. 10, you can write 2 times 5, 5 times 1. So 2 times 5. Now see, here you get x plus 1 and here you get x plus 1 squared. Now we'll see what's the highest powers for each number. So when you look at power of 2, what's the highest power? I can see 2 to the power 2. When you look at 3, you get only power of 1. What about 5? 5 also power of 1. And here x squared, you get x squared term. And when you look at x plus 1 expression, what's the highest power? Power 2. So x plus 1 power 2 is there. So what's the least common multiple? 2 to the power 2 is 4. 4 times 3, 12. 12 times 5, 60. So 60 x squared and x plus 1 whole thing squared. Now we'll look at example 2 in your textbook. Find the least common multiple of the algebraic expressions b minus a, 2 times a minus b, and 4a squared a minus. Now we'll see how can we write down this one, b minus a. So no common factor, so we can write b minus a, or here look at the other two terms. It's given a minus b. Can we write down in terms of a minus b without writing b minus a? Can you remember in chapter 7? We used this property, b minus a. When you take a negative sign, you can rewrite as a minus b. And here, this is 2 times a minus b. What about this one? 4, how can I write? 4, I can write 2 to the power 2. So 2 to the power 2 a squared a minus b squared. Now look at the least common multiple. So what's the answer? When you look at power of 2's, the maximum power is power 2. When you look at a, maximum power is power 2. What about a minus b? When you take all these three, what's the maximum power? A minus b square. And also, can you see there's a minus sign? So you have to put a minus sign. So what's the answer? 2 to the power 2 is 4. You get minus 4 a squared a minus b squared. So what's the least common multiple of this? Minus 4a squared into a minus b whole thing squared. Now, from the previous example, we found out an important property that we learnt in chapter 7. So what's that property? We found out b minus a is same as minus a minus b. Now I want to square both sides. So what happens when you do b minus a squared? What happens? It's equal to minus a minus b whole thing squared. So when you do that, what happens? B minus a whole thing squared is equal to minus into minus becomes plus, and you get a minus b whole thing square. So this is another important property. When you have binomial expression like this with the square term, you can write both ways. Either a minus b or b minus a whole thing squared is equal. So here we found out this property in chapter 7, and this is another property that you can use this in algebraic expressions. Now we'll take exercise 12.2. In the first question, it says find the lowest common multiple or least common multiple of the algebraic expressions in each of the following parts. So you have given 3x plus 6. That's a binomial expression. The other one is 2x minus 4. So what's the first step? You need to factorize and find out the factors. You can take 3 out. When you take 3 out, you get x plus 2 as the other factor. When you take this one, 2 is common. Take 2 out, what's remaining? X minus 2. Now if you want the lowest common multiple, LCM of this. Consider the power of 2, you get 2 here. Consider the power of 3, you get 1, 3. When you take x minus 2, you get 1s. And x plus 2, you are getting 1. So what's the lowest common multiple? 3 times 2, 6, x minus 2 and x plus 2. Now look at the second part. What are the two binomial expressions? 2a plus 8 and 3a plus 12. So here, factorize this. What's common there? I can see 2 is common. Take it out. What's remaining? A plus 4. In this one, what is common? 3 is common. Take it out. A plus 4. Now when you want the lowest common multiple, how can we take? 2 ones there, 3 ones, and a plus 4, you get 1. So what's the lowest common multiple? 2 times 3 is 6 into a plus 4. Now we'll look at the next part. What are the two expressions? P minus 4 and a minus 2p. Can you factorize p minus 4? You can't. So that's the factor there. 1 is common. So when you take this one, I can see 2 is common for both 8 and 2. So when you take 2 out, what's remaining? 4 minus p. Now, can you remember? This is p minus 4. The other one is 4 minus p. So here we can rewrite this as, this one I can write as the other way around. So here instead of this, I can write minus 2 p minus 4. So when you look at these two, what's common? So lowest common multiple is equal to, minus sign is there and 1, 2 is there and p minus 4. So what's the lowest common multiple? Minus 2 times p minus 4. Now look at the next one. So you are getting 8 with x plus 5 and 20 with x plus 5 squared. So what's the common number? 8, how can I write? 8 I can write 2 to the power 3 into x plus 5. How can I write 20? 20 I can write as 2 to the power 2 times 5 and x plus 5 squared. Now when you take the lowest common multiple, what are the common terms? When you take power of 2, the maximum power is 3. So 2 to the power 3. When you take 5, 5 to the power 1. And when you take x plus 5, what's the expression? The highest one is x plus 5 to the power 2. So when you multiply, 2 to the power 3 is 8. 8 times 5, 40. 40 x plus 5 whole thing squared. Now we'll look at this expression. So you get 3x, 15x plus 1, 9x minus 1. So we'll write down with prime factors 3 times x. 15, how can I write? 3 times 5. So 3 times 5 into x plus 1. What about 9? 3 times 3. That means 3 squared. So what's the lowest common multiple of these 3? What's the maximum power of 3? That's 3 to the power 2. What's the maximum power of 5? You get 5. And here you get x term, you get x plus 1 and also x minus 1. So you have to write down all the terms. So what is 3 squared? 9. 9 times 5, 45. X plus 1, x minus 1. Now look at this part. What are the three expressions given? A squared, 2a minus b and b minus a. So how can I write a squared? A squared times 1. This one again you can't factorize further. You can write 2 times a minus b. Now b minus a, can you write in terms of a minus b? Yes, I can write as minus 1 times a minus b. Now look at the lowest common multiple. When you look at the lowest common multiple, we see minus sign is there. When you take power of 2, you get 1, 2, and when you take power of a, you get a squared, and when you see another expression, a minus b. So what's the lowest common multiple? You get minus 2a squared into a minus b. Now we'll take this one. Again you get three expressions. One is 3x minus 2. What's the other one? 5, 3 minus x. Third one, x minus 2, x minus 3. Now we'll rewrite the factors. I can write 3 times x minus 2. Here, how can I write this one? I'll write this one in terms of x minus 3. So I can write 5 times x minus 3, but there's a minus sign. This one, x minus 2, x minus 3. So what's the lowest common multiple? Minus sign is there. 1, 3, another 5. And when you take x minus 2, you get ones and you get x minus 3 ones. So what's the lowest common multiple of this? Minus 3 times 5 minus 15, x minus 2, x minus 3. Now look at this part. 3x, 15x minus 3 and 6x minus 3 squared. So here 3x, 15x minus 3, 6 into x minus 3 squared. Now try to factorize. Write down the prime factors. 3 is 3. So 3 times x. What about 15? 15 is 3 times 5. And x minus 3 is there. What about this one? 6. 2 times 3. Now when you want to find out the least common multiple, what you do? You take the maximum power. When you take maximum power of 2, you get ones. Maximum power of 3, you get 3. Maximum power of 5, you get ones. And you get x term. What's the maximum power of x minus 3? You get x minus 3 squared. When you simplify, what you get? 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 5, 30. So 30x, x minus 3 squared. So that's the least common multiple. Now we'll take this expression. So here t minus 1 is one expression and 1 minus t squared is the other expression. So now can you remember we discussed about important result. So here a minus b squared is same as b minus a squared. So I can write instead of 1 minus t squared as t minus 1 squared. This one t minus 1. So what's the lowest common multiple or least common multiple? I can see when you take the expression t minus 1, the square term is the highest power. So t minus 1 squared is the highest power of these two terms. It's the power of 2, so that's the lowest common multiple. What about this one? What are the expressions you are getting here? You get 2a minus 4, 12a minus 2 to the power 2, 8a plus 2, 2 minus a squared. Now we'll try to write down the factors. First expression, you can take 2 out. So take 2 out. What's the remaining part? A minus 2. And 12, how can I write 12? Divide by 2, divide by 2 again, and divide by 3. So 2 to the power 2 into 3 into a minus 2 squared. Now this one, 8, we know 2 to the power 3. A plus 2 is there. 2 minus a. According to this property, what is 2 minus a? You can write a minus 2 whole thing squared. Instead of this, I can write a minus 2 squared. Now see, what's the lowest common multiple? What's the highest power of 2? You get power 3. What's the highest power of 3? You get ones. What about a minus 2? When you take a minus 2, the highest power is power 2. What about a plus 2? You get ones. So what's the least common multiple? 2 to the power 3 is 8. 8 times 3, 24. A minus 2 squared and a plus 2. Now we'll look at more examples. Now earlier we looked at the property x minus 2 squared. Now you have given another expression like x squared minus 4. Now you need to know how to factorize those expressions. So here we'll take 3x minus 6, x minus 2, x squared minus 4. First one, binomial expression. You can take the common term out, that's 3, and write down x minus 2. Now the second one, already factorized, you can write x minus 2 squared. Now what about this one? X squared minus 4. Can you remember we did this in chapter 7, factorizing quadratic expressions. What is this one? So this is two terms with a minus sign in the middle. What you call that? Difference between two squared terms. So what's the formula we use for difference between two squared terms? When there's two squared terms with a minus sign, we can write down the factors. One is positive and the other one is negative. So this is difference between two squared terms. So you can use that property to factorize this expression. So what is 4? 4 is 2 squared. Now I can see this is like A and B. You can straight away write down the factors. So what are the factors? X plus 2, x minus 2. Now I can find out the lowest common multiple or least common multiple. So when you look at this one, there's 3. And x minus 2, what's the highest power? X minus 2 squared. What's the highest power of x plus 2? You get 1 x plus 2. So what's the lowest common or least common multiple of this? You can write 3 x plus 2 and x minus 2 whole thing squared. Now we'll take this example. Again, you get difference between two squared terms. Now we'll try to factorize. First thing you need to write as two squared terms. I can write 4x as 2x whole thing squared, and 25 I can write 5 squared. Now difference between two squared terms, I can write one expression with plus, the other expression with minus. This one I can take 2 out. 2 is common. When you take 2 out, you get 2x minus 5 as the other factor. When you take 2 out from this one, what you get? 2x plus 5. Now see what's the lowest common multiple or least common multiple. When you take 2 only once, and 2x plus 5 only once, and 2x minus 5 only once. So what's the least common multiple? 2 times 2x plus 5 and 2x minus 5. Now we'll see easy method to find out factors of a trinomial quadratic expression. So here in chapter 7, you did factorizing quadratic expressions. Now we'll do an easy way to get the factors. Now look at this expression, x squared plus 3x plus 2. Earlier we found the factors of 2 and split the middle term according to that. So here factors of 2, 2 and 1. So you can split 3x as 2x plus 1x and then take two terms at once and factorize separately, and we use that method to find out the factors of this quadratic expression. Now I'll teach you an easy method. So what we do, there are no coefficients, the x squared coefficients, the square term coefficient is always 1. So when there's nothing there, just we can write down factors straight away. So what you get, always you get two terms. Two brackets you are getting. So here what we do, we look at the square term. How you get x squared? X and x. So we put x and x there. Then we find out what are the factors of 2. When you add the factors, you should get 3. So what are the factors? This is plus 2. So that means plus 2 and plus 1. So when you add, you get plus 3. So you get these numbers here, plus 2, plus 1. So that's how we find out the factors straight away. Now look at this one, 6. First, look at the square term, a squared. How can you get a squared? A and a. How you get 6? This is plus 6. What are the factors of plus 6? When you add the factors, you get minus 7. So we know third term is plus and the second term is minus. Both the factors are minus. So here we can write 6 times 1. So minus 6 and minus 1, you get plus 6. When you multiply, when you add, you are getting minus 7. So how can you write down the factors? You write minus 6 there, minus 1. What about this one? How you get x squared? X and x. Now look at the last number, 4. How you get 4 plus 4? And when you add the factors, you should get 5. So what are the factors? Plus 4 and plus 1. So what are the factors? Straight away, when you add, you get plus 5. So here you can write plus 4 and plus 1. So here, these are the factors of these quadratic expressions. Now again another one. So what's the easiest method? First look at the coefficient of the square term, that's 1. So straight away you are getting two brackets like this. Look at the square term, y squared. How you get y squared? Y and y. how you get p squared? P and p. Now see how you get minus 8, and when you add the factors you should get minus 7. So what are the factors? 8 and 1 is 8, but 1 should be negative. Which one is negative? The middle term is negative, means the highest number should be negative. The other one should be positive. So what are the factors? Minus 8 and plus 1. So here we write minus 8 and plus 1. Now look at the second one. 30. What are the factors of 30? When you add the factors, you are getting 11. So 6 and 5 plus 6 and plus 5. So here straight away you can write down the factors are plus 6 and plus 5. Now in this one you are getting another number in front. Then you have to multiply and get the term, not straight away. Now here when you get a coefficient like this in the square term, we can use something like this. Now here I can show you an easy method. We call it cross method. Okay, so what I can do, I look at this number and this number. So I write down the factors of the first one here, factors of the other one on the right hand side. So here 3x squared, 3 is just 1 times 3. So you can write one term is 3x and the other term is 1x. So 3x times 1x, you get 3x squared. Now you have to plug the factors of 15 on the other side. What are the factors of 15? 5 and 3. Now this is called trial and error method because at once you won't be able to write down the factors in proper place. We'll take, okay, factors of 15 is plus 5 and plus 3. Now you need to get the middle term as 14. This is what we do. So when you multiply, this is called cross multiply. 3x with 3, you get 9x. 1 with 5, you get 5x. So when you add these two, you should get the middle term. Now are you getting the middle term? 9 plus 4, 9 plus 5, 14. Now you are getting the middle term. So that means these are the proper factors for here and here. So plus 5 and plus 3. So how we can write down the factors? We look at this way. So the factors you get this way. So what are the factors? You get one as 3x plus 5 and the other one as x plus 3. Now we'll look at this one. Again, you can use the cross method. So draw a cross. Factors of this one you write here, factors of this one you write there, and cross multiply, and when you add, you should get the middle term. So 2a squared, 2 is 2 times a, 2 times 1, so you can write 2a and 1a. 7b squared, how can I write 7b squared? 7 times 1, 7 and b into b. So 7b and b, 1b. But this is negative, so 1 should be negative. So we'll take this as negative first and see whether you are getting the middle term. Now cross multiply. 2a times 1b, what you get? 2ab. 1a times minus 7b, you get minus 7ab. When you add these two, are you getting 13ab? We are not getting 13ab. Here you get minus 5ab. So what you have to do when you are not getting the factors, you have to change the order. So we'll write this one is minus, this one as plus then. So you need to get minus 7b squared. So I can write plus 7b with minus b. Now see whether it works. You get 2 times minus 1, minus 2 ab. Here plus 7. Here also you are not getting. So what's the next step we can do? You can change the places of 7b and 1b. Now I can check with other way round. So I'll put 7b here and 1b here. Now which one you should get positive? Positive 13 is there. So can you see this one? You get 14. So this should be plus and this should be minus. So now you are getting 7 times 2, 14. 14 minus 1, you get plus 13. So this is the correct order. So how can you write down the factors? You can write down the factors this way. So what are the factors? 2a minus b and a plus 7b. Now we'll use that method to factorize quadratic expressions to find out the least common multiple of these expressions. So we'll write down, first expression is 2x plus 6. So what are the factors? You can take 2 out and write x plus 3. When you take this trinomial or quadratic expression, we can straight away write down the factors. X and x here. What are the factors of 12 to get 7? Plus 4 and plus 3. Now take the next expression, x squared plus 9x plus 20. So what are the factors of 20 to get 9? 4 and 5. So you can write xx plus 5 and plus 4. Now if you want the least common multiple, how can we find out? 2 is there, 1x plus 3 is common and x plus 4 there and another x plus 5. So you can write down this is the least common multiple of this expression. Now take this one. You get difference between two squared terms and another expression with a number in front. This is a quadratic expression. So how can we factorize 4x squared minus 25? I can rewrite as 2x whole thing squared and 5 squared and consider the difference between two squared terms. So here one is positive, one is negative. This one 2x squared plus 11x plus 15. So here what can I do? I can use the cross method. So when you are using cross method, you can find out factors of 2 is 2 and 1. So 1x and 2x. 15, 5 and 3, 15 and 1. Several factors are there. So this is, I told you, trial and error. At once you won't be able to get the factors. So here try out with 5 and 3 first. Plus 5 and plus 3 and see whether you are getting the middle term. Here when you multiply by 5 you get 5. Here 6. 6 plus 5, 11. So that means this is the correct order. You can find out the factors this way. You can write down 2x plus 5 and x plus 3. Then how you find out the lowest common multiple or least common multiple? So least common multiple is equal to 2x plus 5 is there, x plus 3 is there and 2x minus 5 is there. So all these terms you have to write down to get the lowest common multiple or least common multiple. Now look at this expression. Again, 3 quadratic terms. Expressions. find out the factors. This is straight away you can write x into x is x squared. Factors of 5 to get 6 plus 5 and plus 1. 5 times 1 is 5. When you add 5 and 1 you get 6. What are the factors of this? X is there, x into x you get x squared. What are the factors of 10 to get 7? 5 times 2. So you get 5 times 2 because 5 plus 2 you get 7. What about this one? What are the factors of 16 to get 10? 8 times 2. So you can write xx 8 and 2. Now if you want the lowest or least common multiple, how you find out? X plus 5 is there, x plus 1 and x plus 2 and x plus 8. So you have to write down all terms. Now we'll look at example 1 in your textbook. So here you have given 3 expressions, 2x minus 6, 4x, x minus 3 squared and 6 x squared minus 9. You are asked to find out the least common multiple. Again, you have to factorize. So in this expression, when you factorize, you can take 2 out and write down x minus 3. What about this one? Already factorized, but 4 you can write as 2 to the power 2. 2 to the power 2 x and x minus 3 square. What about this one? 6, how can I write? 2 times 3. And this is difference between two square terms. How can I write 9? I can write 3 squared. So 3 squared is 9. So what are the factors there? X minus 3, x plus 3. Now when you look at the least common multiple, what can I see? When you take power of 2, what's the maximum power of 2? 2 to the power 2. What's the maximum power of 3? Only once. Here maximum power of x, you get x. And here when you take x minus 3, the maximum power is x minus 3 squared and you get another term x plus 3. So what's the least common multiple? 2 to the power 2 is 4. 4 times 3, 12. 12x, x minus 3 squared and x plus 3. Now we'll look at example number 2. In this one it says least common multiple of these 3 expressions. So we'll write down first x plus 2 squared. The other expression is x squared plus 5x plus 6. The third expression given 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. So this one, first one already factorized. So you can write 3 times x plus 2 whole thing squared. What about the other one? This is a quadratic expression. You can factorize at once. So you get xx because this is x squared. What are the factors of 6? And when you add the factors, you should get 5. So what are the factors of 6? This is 3 and 2, plus 3 and plus 2. Because plus 3 and plus 2, you get 5. What about this one? There's a coefficient there, so that means you have to use the cross method. So factors of 2x squared, you can write 2x and 1x. Factors of 3, 3 and 1. Here first we'll write 3 here and 1 here and see whether you are getting plus 7. 3 times 1, 3, 2 times 1, 2. 3 plus 2, 5. So you are not getting the middle term. So what we can do, we can change the place. So when we are changing the place, 3 goes there, 1 there. So now check whether you are getting the middle term. 3 and 2, you get 6. 6 and 1 next, you get 7. So that means this is the correct order. The factors are 2x plus 1 and this is, I'll put plus, x plus 3. Now when you look at the lowest common multiple, what are the terms? 3, you are getting ones. When you take x plus 2, what's the maximum power? X plus 2 squared. And you are getting x plus 3. And also you are getting 2x plus 1. So what's the least common multiple? You get 3 times x plus 2 squared times x plus 3 and 2x plus 1. Now we'll look at exercise 12.3 in your textbook, and you're asked to find out the least common multiple of the following algebraic expressions. So here we'll take the first one, 3x minus 2, and the other one is x squared minus 4. So first thing, try to factorize. First one already done for you. And the second one, what's that? Difference between two squared terms. So you can write, instead of 4, 2 squared. So this is difference between two squared terms. So what are the factors? So you can write x minus 2 and x plus 2. One is positive and one is negative. So what about, so those are the two terms. So how can you find out the lowest common multiple or least common multiple? I can see 3 is common, 1 3 is there, and 1 x minus 2 is there, and 1 x plus 2. So the least common multiple is 3 times x minus 2 and x plus 2. Now look at the second one. What are the two terms? You are getting 6x minus 1, 2x, x squared minus 1. 6 you need to write as prime factors. What's 6? 2 times 3. And you get x minus 1. What about this one? 2 times x is there and x squared minus 1. This is difference between two squared terms. So here this is 1 squared is there. So you can write 1 is positive, 1 is negative. So when you look at the least common multiple, I can see 2 is there, 3 and x and 1 x minus 1 term and 1 x plus 1 term. So when you simplify, what you get? 2 times 3, 6x, x minus 1 and x plus 1. Now we'll look at third part. So here, what are the three numbers? 3x minus 9, 4x, x minus 3, x squared minus 9. So when you want to find out the least common multiple, you have to find out the factors separately. So when you look at this expression, 3 is common. Take it out. So when you take 3 out, what's remaining? X minus 3. What about this one? 4 you have to write as a prime number. So 4 you can write 2 to the power 2 into x, x minus 3. What about this one? This is difference between two squared terms. So 9 you can write 3 squared. So I can write x squared minus 3 squared instead of 9. So what are the factors there? X plus 3, x minus 3. So when you want to find out the least common multiple, look at carefully and see 3 is there, 2 to the power 2 is there, and 1x. When you take x minus 3, you get 1s, and then you get x plus 3. So when you look at all these, what's the least common multiple? 2 to the power 2 is 4. 4 times 3, 12. 12x, x minus 3, x plus 3. Now we'll look at the next one. So the expression is a minus b and a squared minus b squared. So a minus b already factors are factor is a minus b. What about a squared minus b squared? That's difference between two squared terms. So you can write straight away one factor with positive, one factor with negative. So how can we find out the least common multiple? I can see a minus b is there and a plus b. So this is the least common multiple. Now we'll look at this one. What are the two expressions? One is p into p minus q. The other one is pq into p squared minus q squared. So already factorized, p times p minus q. This one you need to factorize. So here p times q. What's this one? Two terms with a minus sign and a square term. So difference between two square terms. So how can I write? This is p minus q and p plus q. So when you look at these two expressions, what is least common multiple? One p term is there, one q term is there, and when you look at this one, p minus q is there and p plus q. So when you are simplifying, you get pq, p minus q and p plus q. Now look at this part. You get quadratic expression x squared plus 2x plus 1 and the other one is 2x plus 1. So here, can you remember the short method? When you get a quadratic expression like this, the coefficient is 1, that means straight away you can write down the two brackets. Factors of x squared is x and x. Factors of 1 is 1 times 1. When you add 1 and 1, you are getting the middle term. So straight away you can write this is plus 1 and this is plus 1. So here this one already factorized 2 times x plus 1. So if you want to find out the lowest common multiple, look at carefully what are the factors. We see this one. Here I can write x plus 1 whole thing squared because we need to take the maximum power. Now I see the maximum power of x plus 1 is 2 and you are getting another 2. So here what's the least common multiple? 2 times x plus 1 whole thing squared. Now look at this one. What are these two expressions? Again, quadratic expressions. You need to factorize. This one is easy because the coefficient of x squared is 1. So what are the factors of 15 to get minus 8? Last term is positive and the middle term is negative, means both factors should be minus. So you get minus 5 and minus 3. So x squared, you get x and x. Factors are minus 5 and minus 3. What about the other one? There's a coefficient. So use the cross method. So draw a cross, write down the factors of 2x squared here. That's 2x and 1x. And you have to write down the factors here. So 15 minus 15, you can get 5 times 3, 15 times 1. So this is trial and error method. So we'll put 5 and 3 and see whether you are getting minus 1. So 1 should be minus. So when you are multiplying these two, 3 times 2, 6x and this is 5x. But the middle term is minus 1. So which one is negative? So this one should be negative. So minus 6x and plus 5x, you get minus 1x. So that's the correct order. So the factors we write down this way. So what are the factors? 2x plus 5 and x minus 3. Then look at carefully and write down the least common multiple is you get x minus 5 term, x minus 3 term and 2x plus 5 term. So that's the least common multiple. Now look at this question. You get three expressions. One is x squared minus 4. The other one is 3x squared minus 5x minus 2. The other one is 3x squared minus 9x minus 12. So we'll try to factorize. First one, difference between two squared terms. So you can write 4 as 2 squared. So you can write straight away x minus 2, x plus 2. So second one, a quadratic expression with a coefficient here. So you need to use the cross method. What are the factors of 3x squared? 3x and x. What are the factors of 2? Minus 2. 2 and 1. We'll put 2 and 1 here and we need to decide whether it's correct, whether you are getting the middle term. We'll multiply and see, cross multiply. 3 here, 2 here. 3 and 2, you are getting 5, but 1 is negative because minus 2 you are getting either minus 2 times 1 or minus 1 times 2. So this is not the correct order because you are not getting the middle term. So what we can do? We can switch. I can put 2 here and 1 here. Now see whether you are getting the middle term. 3 times 2, 6. 6 and 1x. You are getting 5. Which one is negative? This one is negative because negative 6 and plus 1 becomes negative 5. Now we know this is the correct order. So write down the factors this way. So what are the factors? 3x plus 1 and x minus 2. Now look at this one. We don't need to use cross method. Can you see 3 is common to all these three numbers? So I can just take 3 out and write down the other expression. When you divide by 3, what happens? You get x squared minus 3x and minus 4. Now this is normal quadratic expression. So you can write down the factors straight away. So how you get x squared? You get x and x. How you get minus 4? 4 and 1, 2 times 2. But when you add the factors, you should get minus 3. So how we can get minus 3? If you put 4 and 1 with negative 4 and plus 1, you are getting minus 3. So here the factors are minus 4 and plus 1. Now we'll look at the lowest or least common multiple. So what's least common multiple? We see x minus 2 is there, x plus 2, 3x plus 1 and x minus 4, and also there's x plus 1 and there's another 3. So here you have to write down all terms to get the least common multiple. Now we'll look at these two expressions. Again, you're asked to find out the least common multiple. So these are the two expressions. So here, first thing you need to factorize. So what are the factors of this? This is quadratic expression. You can straight away write down the factors. M squared, m and m. Here also m squared, m and m. What are the factors of plus 6? And when you add the factors, you should get minus 5. So what are the factors? Middle term is negative. That means you should get negative values. Minus 3 and minus 2. You get plus 6. When you multiply, when you add, you are getting minus 5. So what are the factors? Minus 3 and minus 2. In this one, you need to get minus 3. What are the factors of minus 3? And when you add the factors, you are getting minus 2. So 3 and 1, which one is negative? Minus 3 and positive 1. So you can write this is minus 3 and positive 1. Now when you want the lowest common multiple, look at carefully and write down all factors. So m minus 3 is there, m minus 2 and m plus 1. So those are the factors and the least common multiple is this. Now we'll look at this one. What's the expression? You get x squared minus a squared. The other one is x squared minus ax. The third one is x squared minus 2ax plus a squared. So the first one, this is difference between two squared terms. So you can straight away write down one factor is positive and the other factor is negative. This one, two terms you can factorize. Take x out, x is common, you get x minus a. What about the third one? This is again quadratic expression and the coefficient is 1. Straight away you can write down x, you get a squared. How you get a squared? A and a. But middle term is minus 2a. So that means this should be minus a and minus a. So here you can rewrite this as x minus a whole thing squared. So what's the least common multiple? You get x term, x plus a, and what's the highest power of x minus a? You get x minus a squared. In this lesson, we covered how to find out the least common multiple of algebraic expressions. So here, first thing you need to find out the factors. So try to use the short method that we did to find out the factors for quadratic expressions, and then what are the methods we use to find out least common multiple? We used my method, that's taking the highest number as the least common multiple, and then we used prime factor method, and also we used division method. So you can use any method to find out the least common multiple.